This is your wake-up call. Your emotions have been running your life for far too long, dictating your choices, hijacking your focus, and sabotaging your potential. Today, that ends. This audiobook is your blueprint for mastering the inner storm, for taking back authority over the only battlefield that ever mattered, your mind. You will learn to silence emotional chaos, respond with discipline, and build an inner world so unshakable that nothing, no person, no setback, no circumstance can break your calm. Your new emotional standard begins now. Chapter 1. Stop letting your feelings drive the wheel ****. Your feelings want the wheel. They want to steer your day, your reactions, your choices, and your entire identity. And if you've lived most of your life on emotional autopilot, then you already know the cost. Regret, overreaction, inconsistency, and that sinking sense that you're not actually in charge of your own life. You know that feeling, the one that hits right after you snap, or withdraw, or shut down, or spiral. That moment when you say to yourself, "Why did I do that?" Here's the answer. You didn't decide. Your feelings did. ****. And that ends today. Emotion isn't a compass. Emotion isn't truth. Emotion is a reaction, a reflex, your brain's immediate, unfiltered, unedited response to whatever's happening around you. That means it's fast, it's loud, and it's often wrong. But here's the real danger. It's familiar, and your brain will always choose the familiar over the correct. Your brain loves patterns, even destructive ones, especially destructive ones, because patterns feel safe. Patterns feel predictable. Patterns feel like home, even if home is chaos. That's why you keep repeating the same cycles, the same arguments, the same impulsive choices, the same regret. You're not broken. You're conditioned, and what you don't interrupt, you repeat. That's the key. So let's dismantle the myth right now. Your feelings do not tell you what's true about the world. They tell you what's familiar from your past. When you overreact to criticism, that's your past responding. When you shut down during conflict, that's your conditioning speaking. When you choose comfort over growth, that's your emotional autopilot, keeping you exactly where you've always been. But here's where your power begins. You have a choice. And your choice begins in one single, microscopic moment, the interruption. Before every reaction, there's a split second where your mind opens a door. A tiny gap. Most people never step through it because they don't even notice it exists. But you're not most people anymore. You're training your mind. You're building discipline. You're reclaiming the wheel. That gap is where command begins. That gap is where authority begins. That gap is where you take your life back. And inside that gap, there are 3 words that will shift everything. Stop. Breathe. Decide. Asterisco. Say it with me. Stop. Breathe. Decide. This is your anchor. This is a command sequence you'll use every day from this point forward. Because interrupting your emotional autopilot is not complicated. It's consistent. And consistency is discipline. You don't need perfection. You don't need permission. You need interruption. Let's make this real. Think about the last time you reacted too quickly. Maybe someone said something that irritated you. Maybe a coworker sent a passive comment. Maybe your partner forgot something important. And before you even realized you were reacting, the words were already out of your mouth. Sharp, defensive, emotional. The reaction wasn't the problem. The lack of interruption was. Because once the emotional momentum takes over, you're no longer choosing. You're following. You're letting the storm drive the wheel while you sit in the passenger seat, pretending you're helpless. But you're not helpless. You've just never been trained to interrupt. Picture this. Someone triggers you. Your chest tightens. Your shoulders rise. Your thoughts speed up. That's the storm. That's the moment. Now imagine inserting just one breath between the trigger and your response. One breath, one pause, one moment where you say to yourself, "Stop, breathe, decide, asterisco. In that single breath, you reclaim authority. In that single breath, you choose clarity over chaos. In that single breath, you stop being ruled by your history and start being ruled by your discipline. You have a choice. And every choice builds either your weakness or your strength. Here's another truth you need to absorb. Asterisk, your emotions are not the enemy. Your lack of command is. Asterisk, you don't need to eliminate feelings. You need to stop obeying them. Because emotions are loud, but they're not wise. They're fast, but they're not correct. They're powerful, but they're not final. Unless you hand them the wheel. Let's go deeper. Every emotional reaction you have is a neural shortcut. Your brain tries to rush to the easiest conclusion. The problem is that the easiest conclusion is usually the least disciplined one. The brain wants energy efficiency, not emotional mastery. It wants habits, not transformation. That's why it repeats. And repetition is why you keep falling into the same emotional traps. Snapping too fast, shutting down too early, avoiding too often, explaining too much, defending too quickly. You've rehearsed those behaviors for years. And anything rehearsed becomes reflex. So if you want new emotional outcomes, you need new emotional reps. And the first rep is always the interruption. The first rep is always the pause. The first rep is always the breath. Stop. Breathe. Decide. Asterisco, asterisco. Say it until it becomes automatic. Say it until it becomes instinct. Say it until your mind begins to respect your authority. That's the key. Your mind must learn to trust you more than it trusts the storm. So here's your first behavioral instruction. The first real action step in building emotional command. For the next 24 hours, interrupt 3 reactions. Just 3. When someone irritates you, interrupt. When doubt creeps in, interrupt. When fear tries to steer the wheel, interrupt. You don't need perfect responses. You need intentional ones. Because discipline isn't about suppressing feelings. It's about directing them. It's not about avoiding the storm. It's about choosing the direction while you're in it. And here's what you'll start to notice. The moment you interrupt, the storm loses power. The moment you pause, your mind opens. The moment you choose, you transform. Because choice is what builds emotional strength. Choice is what builds confidence. Choice is what builds an unshakable identity. Let me say it again because this is the foundation of everything that comes after this. Your power begins the moment you interrupt the momentum of your feelings. You are not here to eliminate emotion. You are here to master it. You are here to build an internal world so disciplined that impulse can't control you anymore. You are here to take the wheel back from the storm. Remember this line. What you don't interrupt, you repeat. And what you repeat, you become. But you're building a different become. You're building someone decisive, someone calm, someone intentional, someone who acts from clarity, not chaos. Pause. Command. Decide. This is the beginning of emotional authority. This is a foundation of unshakable inner discipline. And this is where your transformation starts. You've taken your first step into the storm. Now it's time to learn how to detach from the chaos completely. Chapter 2. Detach or be dragged asterisk asterisk. You get dragged by life for one reason. You're holding on too tight. Too tight to outcomes. Too tight to expectations. Too tight to people's opinions, moods, or approval. Too tight to the idea that things must unfold your way or else something is wrong. Attachment fuels chaos. Attachment feeds anxiety. Attachment keeps you emotionally reactive, emotionally unstable, and emotionally exhausted. You think your stress comes from what's happening around you. It doesn't. Your stress comes from how tightly you grip what you think should happen. That's the key. So, let's get this straight from the beginning. Detachment is not apathy. Detachment is clarity. Asterisk, asterisk. Detachment is a discipline of seeing things as they are, not through the lens of your fears, your hopes, or your old wounds. When you're attached, everything feels personal. When you're detached, everything becomes information. And that shift, right there, is the beginning of emotional mastery. You have a choice. You always have a choice. But attachment blocks your ability to choose because it hijacks your mind with emotion before you ever even consider your options. Think about this. You're attached to a certain outcome at work. You expect praise. You expect smooth execution. You expect recognition, validation, or at least acknowledgement. And when reality doesn't match your expectation, you feel attacked. You feel overlooked. You feel insulted. But here's the truth. It wasn't the situation that hurt you. It was your attachment to how the situation should have gone. Or consider relationships. You expect loyalty, consistency, certain behaviors, certain tones, certain levels of reciprocation. And when someone does not deliver what you assumed they would, you feel disrespected. You feel unloved. You feel triggered. But again, the pain didn't come from their action alone. It came from your attachment to your expectation. Attachment turns preferences into ultimatums. It turns hope into fear. It turns desire into desperation. And desperation is where emotional chaos thrives. Let me give you a powerful truth. You can care without clinging. You can love without losing yourself. You can show up fully without attaching the weight of your identity to outcomes you can't control. Because when your identity depends on external stability, you'll always be unstable. That's why we train detachment. Not to withdraw, not to numb, but to see clearly, to see calmly, to see without being dragged by every emotional wave that hits you. Let's talk about what detachment actually looks like in the real world. Scenario 1, workplace conflict. Your coworker criticizes your idea. In a meeting, if you're attached, you hear an attack. If you're detached, you hear information. Attachment reacts. Detachment evaluates. Attachment says, they disrespected me. Detachment says, what's the actual value here? What's the next move that serves my goal? You have a choice, and clarity is always a stronger choice. Scenario 2, relationship tension. Your partner comes home irritated. Their tone is short. Their energy is off. If you're attached, you pull it in, what did I do wrong? If you're attached, you feel rejected, anxious, defensive, or clingy. But if you're detached, you observe rather than absorb. You see their mood without taking responsibility for it. You see their tension without adopting it as your identity. This is why the mantra matters. Observe, don't absorb. Say it again. Observe, don't absorb. Because the moment you start absorbing other people's emotions, you lose command of your own. And when you lose command, the storm takes the wheel. Let me give you a deeper truth. Attachment is the root of most suffering because attachment hands your emotional state to things you cannot control, people you can't control, outcomes you can't control, past events you can't control, the future you can't control. When you attach your peace to external stability, you guarantee internal instability. But detachment reverses that. Detachment says, my peace comes from within. My clarity comes from within. My choices come from within. You don't need their permission. You don't need their approval. You don't need the world to behave a certain way for you to remain calm. That's emotional authority. That's internal power. That's the foundation of this entire book. Let's talk about why attachment feels so powerful. Because your brain craves familiarity. Your brain wants predictable patterns. Your brain wants the illusion of control. Attachment gives you that illusion. If I hold on tightly enough, I can make it turn out the way I want. No, you can't. And you know that. You've tried that. And you've suffered for it. Attachment doesn't give you control. It gives you anxiety. And the tighter your grip, the deeper the chaos. So here's the mindset shift. You don't let go to lose control. You let go to gain it. Let go of the illusion. Take hold of reality. Shift from emotion to clarity. And clarity only comes when you detach enough to see the truth. Some things are yours to influence. Some things are yours to accept. And the difference between the two is emotional maturity. Let's go deeper. Picture yourself in the middle of a river. If you cling to every branch, every rock, every tree root, you get stuck, bruised, and battered. But if you stay centered, if you flow with awareness instead of clinging with fear, you move smoothly. You navigate the current with purpose, not panic. Detachment is that flow. Attachment is that clinging. Here's your next discipline tool. Whenever you feel overwhelmed, whenever emotion spikes, whenever anxiety rises, say this to yourself. This matters, but it does not control me. Then follow with the mantra. Observe, don't absorb. Observe the tone. Observe the situation. Observe the outcome. Observe the feeling. But do not absorb. Absorbing is emotional self-abandonment. Observing is emotional leadership, and you are learning to lead yourself. Before we close this chapter, here's the challenge you must take on. For the next 24 hours, detach once, just once. One situation where you normally spiral. One moment where you normally cling. One outcome where you normally tense up. Pause, breathe, step back. See it as information, not identity. See it as a moment, not a threat. See it as a choice, not a chain. Detachment is emotional freedom. Detachment is inner authority. Detachment is how you stop being dragged through life and start directing your life. You've learned to interrupt your reactions, and now you've learned to step back from chaos. Next, we build the discipline that turns these tools into permanent identity. Chapter 3, the discipline of daily emotional reps ***. Emotional mastery is not an event. It's not a breakthrough. It's not a single moment of clarity that magically transforms your entire life. Emotional mastery is a practice, a daily, deliberate, disciplined training of your inner world. You don't become emotionally strong by wanting it. You become emotionally strong by working it. Just like physical strength, emotional strength requires reps, daily reps, small reps, reps you don't want to do, reps you don't get rewarded for, reps no one sees but you. Most people will never understand this. They want control without training. They want calm without practice. They want mastery without repetition. But mastery doesn't come from wanting. It comes from conditioning. That's the key. In the gym, your muscles grow because you apply controlled stress repeatedly. Your body adapts. Your strength improves. The same rule applies to your emotions. Emotional control is a muscle. Train it daily. Say it with me. Control is a muscle. Train it daily. Again, control is a muscle. Train it daily. You have a choice. Every day, you choose whether you train that muscle or let it atrophy. And most people let it atrophy because they're waiting for big moments to prove their strength. But big moments don't build strength, they reveal it. Your real transformation happens in the micro moments, the small, silent, ordinary moments where you practice discipline, the moments where no one is watching, the moments where you make the conscious decision to act from clarity instead of impulse. Micro moments build macro control. So let's break this down. What are emotional reps? What does training actually look like? How do you build emotional discipline into your daily life? You train during transitions. That's where your mind is most vulnerable and most programmable. The transitions between states, between tasks, between environments, between emotions. For example, the moment you wake up, before your feet hit the floor, that's your first rep. Most people roll into the day on emotional autopilot. They wake up and instantly absorb stress, scrolling through messages, notifications, responsibilities. But not you, not anymore. Your first rep of emotional discipline is simple. Pause, breathe, set intention. Remind yourself, control is a muscle. Train it daily, right there, before the world can touch you. That's a rep. Next transition, the commute. Most people stew in irritation, traffic, noise, delays, crowds. They get emotionally triggered before the day even begins, and they call it normal. But it's not normal. It's undisciplined. Your commute is a training ground, a session, a daily rep sequence. You train by observing your emotional spikes and choosing not to indulge them. You train by staying calm in conditions that are outside your control. You train by repeating the mantra, observe, don't absorb. Control is a muscle. Train it daily. Each breath, each pause, each choice is a rep that builds your inner strength. Another major transition, starting work. Whether you work in an office, at home, in the field, this moment matters. The shift from personal space to task execution is emotional friction, and friction is opportunity. Most people rush into work reactive, scattered, overwhelmed. They react to the first email, the first problem, the first request. Their emotions jump in the driver's seat before they even start the engine. But you're training. You don't rush. You reset. You take 10 seconds before starting. Not 10 minutes. Not a meditation retreat. 10 seconds. That's a rep. A powerful rep. Eyes closed, deep inhale, intentional exhale. Control is a muscle. Train it daily. This anchors your mind. It programs your focus. It stabilizes your internal state. And it prevents the day from hijacking your discipline. Next transition, facing conflict. Conflict is emotional weightlifting. This is where your training shows. This is where your strength gets tested. Someone says something irritating. Someone criticizes you. Someone misunderstands you. Someone challenges you. Most people react instantly, not because they're bad people, but because they've never trained to pause. But you have. You're practicing emotional reps every day. So when conflict hits, you know the move. Stop. Breathe. Ditchide. That's your form, your technique, your training rhythm. And with each conflict rep, your emotional strength increases. With each rep, you reinforce identity. With each rep, you teach your mind to trust you more than it trusts the storm. Control is a muscle. Train it daily. Say it again until the identity forms in your bones. Let's go deeper. Why are micro moments so powerful? Because your emotional system learns through repetition, not intensity. You don't need emotional heroics. You need daily consistency. Think of someone who only goes to the gym when they feel motivated. They don't progress. They don't change. They stay stuck at the same level year after year. Why? Because motivation isn't training. Emotion isn't training. Reps are training. Emotional discipline works the same way. Here's what real emotional reps look like throughout your day. Choosing silence instead of snapping back. Breathing instead of spiraling. Observing instead of absorbing. Pausing instead of reacting. Redirecting instead of indulging fear. Responding with intention instead of impulse. These are reps. These are your sets. This is your training program. But let me warn you, training is uncomfortable. Training is unglamorous. Training is repetitive. And that's why most people fail. They want emotional mastery, to feel inspiring. But mastery feels repetitive long before it feels powerful. You have a choice. Choose the repetition. Choose the reps. Choose the discipline. Because every rep builds identity. You're not just practicing emotional control. You're becoming a person who is emotionally controlled. You're not just training discipline. You're becoming someone who embodies discipline. You're not just building habits. You're building a self-concept. And self-concept is everything. By the end of this book, emotional discipline won't be something you do. It will be something you are. A calm person, a steady person, a precise person, a person who does not fold under pressure, a person who chooses clarity over chaos every single day. That identity starts here, in the micro moments, in the daily reps. Let me give you a mantra you'll carry for the rest of this journey. Small disciplines create big lives. And emotional discipline is the smallest, most foundational discipline of all. You train it in moments so small they seem invisible, until the day they make you unshakable. Your challenge for the next 24 hours is simple. Do 3 emotional reps, 3 pauses, 3 intentional choices, 3 moments of control where you previously had none. That's how you build strength. That's how you build identity. That's how you build emotional command. You've learned how to interrupt. You've learned how to detach. And now you've learned how to train discipline daily. Next, we attack the sources of chaos directly. Chapter 4. Stop fueling the storm. Remove emotional triggers ***. Most of the emotional chaos in your life is not random. It's not surprising. It's not unpredictable. In fact, it's painfully predictable. The same people trigger you. The same environments drain you. The same habits sabotage you. The same situations send you spiraling. And every time it happens, you act shocked, like the storm came out of nowhere. But storms don't just happen. Not emotional storms. Not the kind that keep repeating. If it keeps happening, it's because you keep fueling it. And if you keep fueling it, it's because you haven't removed the trigger. That's the key. Let's state this clearly. Most chaos in your life has a pattern. And if it has a pattern, it has a source. And if it has a source, it has a solution. Your job is to find the source and stop pretending you don't know what it is. Triggers aren't subtle. They're loud. They're consistent. They're familiar. But your brain loves a familiar, even when it's destructive. You already learned that. And because the brain prefers a familiar, it keeps pulling you back toward the same emotional traps. You don't need more strength to avoid them. You need fewer traps. This chapter is about identifying the patterns that pull you out of control and removing the fuel that keeps the emotional fire burning. Because if you don't cut the fuel, you will burn forever. Let's break this down. Step 1. Identify the patterns. Think about the last 5 times you lost control. Not 1, not 2, 5. Who was involved? Where were you? What time of day was it? What thoughts came before the reaction? What behaviors led up to the moment? When you look closely, you'll see the pattern. Because emotional chaos is rarely random. It's triggered by predictable inputs. And if you want emotional stability, you have to become a detective. You have to investigate your own patterns with brutal honesty. For many people, the triggers are obvious. A toxic coworker who knows exactly how to push your buttons. A family member who drains you every time they speak. A friend who constantly complains, gossips, or catastrophizes. A cluttered environment that creates mental overload. A digital habit, notifications, doom scrolling, comparison, that spikes anxiety on command. A daily routine that starts with chaos instead of clarity. Triggers are everywhere. And most people pretend they don't exist because confronting them requires action. Action requires discipline. And discipline requires identity. But you're building that identity now. Let's go deeper. Triggers don't just create emotions. They create emotional momentum. Momentum means once you get pulled in, the spiral happens fast. You snap. You shut down. You overthink. You catastrophize. You lose clarity. You lose control. It's not the magnitude of the trigger. It's the chain reaction that follows. Here's an example. Someone sends you a text with a rude tone. You instantly interpret it negatively. Your mind starts telling stories. Your chest tightens. Your jaw clenches. You rehearse arguments in your head. You get distracted from your work. Your whole day is thrown off. The trigger was tiny. The storm was massive. That's the power of emotional momentum. And the only way to stop the momentum is to remove the source that starts it, which brings us to the next level of truth. You cannot master your emotions while living in environments that constantly sabotage them. Read that again. You can't out-train a toxic person you refuse to distance yourself from. You can't out-focus a cluttered environment you refuse to clean. You can't out-discipline a digital addiction you refuse to address. You can't out-calm the noise you willingly expose yourself to. You have a choice, and the choice is simple. Remove the trigger or be ruled by it. Let me give you an analogy. Imagine trying to stay dry in a storm while standing under a leaking roof. You can wear a jacket. You can carry an umbrella. You can hold a towel. But as long as you remain under the leak, you will get wet. That's what emotional triggers do. You try to cope. You try to manage. You try to stay calm. But you're still standing under the leak. The solution is not better coping. The solution is relocation. You move out from under the leak. You cut the fuel or burn forever. Now here's the challenge most people face. Removing triggers feels uncomfortable because it feels like loss. Loss of relationships, loss of habits, loss of routines, loss of comfort zones. But what you call loss is actually expansion. It's pruning. You're removing what weakens you so that what strengthens you can rise. Still, removal alone is not enough. Removal creates a void. And if you don't fill that void intentionally, your mind will fill it with old triggers. This is why we install the principle. Replacement removal. Let me explain. If your trigger is morning chaos, you don't just remove it. You replace it with a morning ritual that stabilizes your state. If your trigger is digital overstimulation, you don't just delete apps. You replace them with focused blocks of intention. If your trigger is a toxic friend, you don't just create distance. You replace that space with someone who supports your growth. If your trigger is clutter, you don't just clean once. You replace the environment with a system of order. If your trigger is late-night overthinking, you don't just try to stop. You replace it with an evening wind-down ritual. You replace the fuel source with discipline. You replace the chaos with clarity. You replace the trigger with a tool. Let me give you a powerful example. If social media is a trigger, removing it will feel like withdrawal. Your brain will crave the familiar dopamine loop. So instead of just deleting the app, replace that habit with something intentional. Reading, walking, journaling, stretching, deep breathing, a cold splash of water, a quick reset ritual. Replacement removal, because a void is dangerous. A void invites old patterns back in. A void is an open door for the storm to return. You don't need their permission to remove triggers. You don't need to justify your decisions. You don't need to explain your boundaries. You only need discipline. Because every trigger you remove reduces tomorrow's emotional burden. Every trigger you replace increases tomorrow's emotional strength. Every trigger you identify increases your inner authority. This chapter isn't about becoming fragile. It's about becoming precise. A disciplined mind doesn't fear triggers. It eliminates them. A disciplined mind doesn't tolerate chaos. It outgrows it. A disciplined mind doesn't get dragged. It decides. Let's finish with this. Your emotional world becomes calmer the moment you stop feeding the things that ignite your storms. Your life gets quieter the moment you stop entertaining the sources of your chaos. Your inner strength grows the moment you remove what weakens you and replace it with what builds you. This is emotional engineering. This is inner architecture. This is control. You've learned to interrupt. You've learned to detach. You've learned to train daily. And now you've learned to remove the fuel that feeds the storm. Next, we shift from defense to offense. Chapter 5. Master the art of response over reaction. There is a moment, small, invisible, and easy to miss, that determines the direction of your entire emotional life. It happens every time something challenges you, every time someone disrespects you, every time life throws something unexpected at your face. It's the moment between stimulus and action, between trigger and behavior, between feeling and choice. Most people never even notice this moment. They skip straight to the reaction. Because reaction is automatic. Reaction is survival. Reaction is old wiring. Ancient programming written long before you had any say in the matter. But response? Response is strategy. Response is a conscious override. Response is the moment you step into mastery instead of being dragged by instinct. If reaction is the past controlling you, response is you controlling the future. The human brain is built to react fast. It's built for survival. Fight, flight, freeze, fawn. Those patterns are efficient, automatic, and deeply imprinted. They help your ancestors stay alive, but they make modern emotional life chaotic. Someone cuts you off in traffic, your brain triggers an anger spike. You receive a short, blunt text, your brain interprets threat. A co-worker questions your work, your brain fires defensiveness. Your partner sounds annoyed, your brain activates insecurity. It happens before you even think, because your brain isn't aiming for clarity. It's aiming for safety. But here's the truth. You cannot live a powerful life using survival wiring. To rise, you need strategy, not instinct. You need response, not reaction. This is where emotional mastery begins. Let's break it down clearly. Your brain fires a reaction. Your awareness chooses a response. That's why I repeat this principle. You choose twice, once inside, once outside. The internal choice is your emotional decision. The external choice is your behavioral decision. Most people never make the first choice consciously, so the second one collapses. Internal choice. What meaning do I assign to this moment? External choice. What action aligns with my strength, not my weakness? This is the architecture of control. This is the operating system of emotional mastery. But how do you actually create that space between reaction and response? You need a tool, a reset, a moment of interruption. This is where the 5-second reset comes in. It's simple, it's fast, and it works because it intercepts the brain before the old wiring takes over. Here's how it works. Step 1, pause. Step 2, breathe. Step 3, ask, what is the strongest move right now? That's it. 3 actions, 5 seconds. But inside those 5 seconds, your entire identity shifts from emotional autopilot to conscious leadership. Let's walk through it. Step 1, pause. The pause is the pattern interrupt. It breaks the loop. It stops momentum. It keeps the reaction from taking full control. Even 1 second of pause is enough to halt a chain reaction of emotional spiraling. A pause reopens a door you usually slam shut without noticing. Step 2, breathe. Breathing signals safety. Slow breath tells your nervous system, we are not in danger. We are choosing. It lowers the emotional charge. It widens the mental space. It gives your higher thinking room to come online. When you breathe, you are not calming down. You are reclaiming your authority. Step 3, ask, what is the strongest move right now? Not the fastest, not the easiest, not the most familiar, the strongest. This question shifts your state instantly. It forces your mind to scan for strategy instead of react from instinct. It takes you out of emotion and into leadership. It aligns you with the identity you're building, not the identity you're escaping. Let's see this tool in real scenarios. Someone speaks to you with disrespect. Your old wiring fires up instantly. Anger, ego, defense. But instead of reacting, you run the reset. Pause. Breathe. What is the strongest move right now? Maybe the strongest move is silence. Maybe it's a boundary. Maybe it's walking away. Maybe it's addressing it later when you're clear, not heated. The point is, you choose the move. The moment doesn't choose for you. Another example, you receive stressful news at work. Your stomach tightens. Your mind starts spinning. Your chest gets heavy. But before the panic takes over, pause. Breathe. What is the strongest move right now? Suddenly the noise quiets. Your focus sharpens. Your actions become intentional. Or think about relationships. Your partner says something that hits a sensitive spot. Old patterns of insecurity try to hijack your mind. You want to withdraw, defend, or snap. But instead, pause. Breathe. What is the strongest move right now? Strength might mean clarity. It might mean empathy. It might mean asking a direct question. It might mean holding your emotional ground instead of collapsing. Over time, the reset becomes automatic. It becomes your new wiring. It becomes your emotional muscle memory. And this brings us back to the identity shift you're building. You choose twice, once inside, once outside. The inside choice is the meaning you give the moment. The outside choice is the move you make. Weak people collapse between the two. Strong people master both. Let me tell you something powerful. You will never eliminate your initial reaction. You're human. Your nervous system is human. Your emotions are human. Reaction is not the enemy. Reaction is a signal, a compass, a guide. But reaction is not supposed to be the leader of your life. Response is, the goal is not to feel nothing. The goal is to choose everything. Mastering your response doesn't mean you don't get triggered. It means the trigger doesn't own you. You don't deny your feelings. You direct them. You don't suppress your impulses. You refine them. You don't silence your emotions. You elevate them. Let's make this practical. Throughout your day, you will encounter dozens of micro moments where you can practice the 5-second reset. Someone interrupts you. You hit a delay or frustration. You get unexpected news. A co-worker pushes your boundaries. You feel stress rise in your body. You sense old patterns resurfacing. Every one of these moments is an opportunity. Every one of them builds emotional strength. Every one of them reinforces mastery. And every time you reset, you are rewiring your identity. You are becoming a version of yourself who leads instead of reacts. You are shifting from survival to strategy. Let's finish with this. Life will continue to throw challenges at you. People will continue to test you. Your brain will continue to fire old reactions. Stress will still find you. Discomfort will still show up. But now you are no longer powerless. You have a tool. You have a reset. You have awareness. You have strategy. Remember, you choose twice, once inside, once outside. Master the internal choice, and the external choice becomes effortless. Master the moment, and you master your life. Master your response, and nothing, not chaos, not people, not emotion, can drag you anymore. Next, we step into the deepest layer of control. Chapter 6. Emotion-proof your environment. Your emotions do not appear out of nowhere. They are trained, shaped, and reinforced by the environment you live in every single day. Your surroundings teach your nervous system what to expect. They prime your reactions before anything even happens. They create the baseline that your mind operates from. People love to blame themselves for being stressed, scattered, reactive, or overwhelmed. But here's the truth most people ignore. Your environment is programming you. Clutter trains anxiety. Noise trains irritability. Digital overload trains distraction. Toxic people train insecurity. Your environment is teaching your emotions how to behave, whether you realize it or not. You cannot build inner calm while living in outer chaos. You cannot build discipline in a space designed for distraction. You cannot build emotional strength in a world you never intentionally constructed. And that brings us to the core principle of this chapter, the one you're going to hear again and again. If your environment is loud, your mind will be louder. Let's break that down. When your surroundings overwhelm your senses, your nervous system goes into alert mode. When everything around you is demanding attention, your brain never rests. When your physical world is cluttered, your mental world becomes chaotic. If your environment is loud, your mind will be louder. That's not philosophy. That's neuroscience. Let's start with something simple and often dismissed. Physical clutter. People joke about messy rooms and chaotic desks, but clutter is not harmless. Clutter is stimulus. Clutter is noise. Clutter is a constant reminder of unfinished tasks, unresolved decisions, and delayed responsibility. A cluttered room is a constant whisper, "You're behind." A cluttered workspace tells your mind, "You're not in control." A cluttered living environment feeds tension. You're surrounded by chaos. This isn't about perfection. This is about structure. This is about peace on purpose. If your environment is loud, your mind will be louder. Then there's noise, the invisible stress amplifier. Most people don't realize how much noise shapes their emotional baseline. Traffic sounds, loud neighbors, constant notifications, background TV. Even subtle noise pollution wears down your patience, your clarity, your emotional bandwidth. Noise drains you without your permission. Noise forces your nervous system to stay alert. Noise triggers microstress hundreds of times a day. If your environment is loud, your mind will be louder. And now we move to the modern firestorm, digital overstimulation. Your phone is the most chaotic environment you carry. It's a pocket-sized casino designed to hijack your attention, trigger dopamine spikes, and pull you into emotional quicksand. Every notification is a micro shock to your nervous system. Every scroll trains your brain to chase stimulation instead of clarity. Every app competes for your emotional state. Your digital environment is shaping your emotional habits. It's teaching you impatience. It's teaching you distraction. It's teaching you to react, not respond. Scroll long enough and you lose your inner stillness. Tap often enough and your brain loses its ability to focus. Chase every notification and your emotional baseline becomes agitation. If your environment is loud, your mind will be louder. Now let's address the most powerful environmental influence of all, asterisk people. Asterisk. You become emotionally similar to the people you spend time with. Their moods rub off. Their habits imprint. Their standards infect your standards. If you spend time around people addicted to drama, you will become reactive. If you spend time around people who panic, you will become anxious. If you spend time around people who complain, you'll become negative. This is not optional. This is not about being strong enough to resist. This is psychology. Your environment trains your emotions, and people are a massive part of that environment. You don't rise emotionally when surrounded by people who pull you down. You don't build discipline in a group that rewards weakness. You don't build clarity in conversations filled with noise. If your environment is loud, your mind will be louder. So what do? You design your environment with intention. You build the external world that supports your internal goals. You design for the calm you want, not the chaos you've been tolerating. Let's talk practical steps. 1. Build a physical environment that supports calm, not chaos. Asterisk. Clear surfaces. Organize what matters. Remove what doesn't. You're not building a showroom. You're building a training ground. Your home should be a place where your nervous system can breathe. Your workspace should support clarity, not conflict. Your surroundings should reinforce discipline, not disrupt it. Clean one area at a time if you must. But clean something, clear something, control something. Every space you bring to order brings your emotions to order. 2. Take control of noise. Asterisk, asterisk. Noise-canceling headphones. White noise. Quiet playlists. Close windows. Boundary agreements with people around you. Anything that reduces attention. Anything that protects your focus. Anything that lowers the emotional volume of your environment. There is no reward for tolerating noise that destroys your peace. 3. Rebuild your digital environment from the ground up. Asterisk, asterisk. Turn off notifications you don't need. Organize your apps by function, not impulse. Delete the ones that hijack your attention. Keep your phone out of reach when you're working. Set digital curfews. Use your devices. They should not use you. Your digital space should feel clean. It should feel simple. It should feel like a tool, not a trap. You can't build inner stillness while carrying a chaos machine in your pocket. 4. Curate your social environment with courage. Asterisk, asterisk. This is the hard one, but it's the most important one. Limit time with people who drain you. Create distance from people addicted to drama. Set boundaries with people who disrespect your peace. And intentionally spend time with people who are calm, clear, disciplined, and stable. Because emotional states transfer. You don't need permission to protect your peace. You don't owe anyone access to your inner world. You don't have to explain why someone makes you feel unstable. If your environment is loud, your mind will be louder, and some people are noise. Now, let's bring this together. Imagine 2 lives. One lived in clutter, noise, digital chaos, and emotional instability. The other lived in simplicity, structure, quiet, and intentional connection. These 2 lives will not produce the same emotional outcomes. They cannot. Your environment is not neutral. Your environment is a teacher. And right now, you must decide what you want to teach you. You want calm? Build it. You want discipline? Reinforce it. You want emotional mastery? Set your environment up for mastery. This is the truth most people avoid. Your environment is a mirror of your standards. Raise your environment, and your emotional strength rises with it. Protect your environment, and your peace becomes unshakable. Because in the end, your emotional state will always follow your surroundings. If your environment is loud, your mind will be louder. But if your environment is calm, you become unstoppable. You've cleaned the noise around you. Now it's time to clean the noise inside you. Chapter 7. Build a mind that doesn't break under pressure. Pressure doesn't create weakness. Pressure exposes weakness. That's the truth most people run from. They think stress is the enemy. They think pressure is what breaks them. They think challenges are the reason they fall apart. But listen closely. Pressure does not break you. It reveals the parts of you that were never trained. Pressure is a spotlight. It shines on the cracks you've been ignoring. It highlights the patterns you refuse to fix. It magnifies the emotional habits you've allowed to run unchecked. This chapter is about building the kind of mind that doesn't shatter the moment life gets loud. A mind that doesn't fold when stress rises. A mind that stands firm when everything else shakes. Because you can build that mind. You can train for that strength. You can condition your emotional system to handle more than you ever believed. And here's the principle I'll repeat until it becomes part of your identity. You can endure more than you think, but only if you train for it. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. Most people collapse under pressure because they never expose themselves to it intentionally. Their entire life is built around avoiding discomfort, avoiding friction, avoiding challenge, avoiding anything that stretches their limits. They want resilience without resistance, strength without stress, confidence without testing. Impossible. A mind that never experiences pressure will always break the moment pressure arrives. Think of it like physical training. You don't build stronger muscles by avoiding weight. You build them by lifting against resistance. You don't build endurance by sitting still. You build it by deliberately pushing your limits. You don't build stability by hiding from stress. You build it by meeting stress in controlled doses. This is called stress inoculation. It's the foundation of emotional resilience. It's how soldiers, athletes, surgeons, leaders, and high performers develop unshakable mental strength. They train under pressure, so they don't collapse under pressure. You can do the same. You must do the same. Because emotional mastery without stress inoculation is incomplete. Let's break down how to build this systematically. ###1. Control challenges create control minds. ***. This means you intentionally put yourself in situations that stretch you, but don't overwhelm you. Cold exposure, timed work blocks, difficult conversations, accountability to others, intentional silence, delayed gratification, physical exertion. These are all controlled stressors. They activate your nervous system just enough to teach you how to stay calm, stay clear, and stay in choice. You're not traumatizing yourself. You're training yourself. When you step into cold water, your body wants to panic, but you breathe, you slow down, you withstand. That's emotional training. That's your inner world learning stability under pressure. When you commit to a 30-minute focus work block, your brain wants to escape, but you stay. You push. You complete the block. That's discipline under pressure. When you have a difficult conversation you've been avoiding, your fear spikes. But you speak anyway. You stay steady. You remain grounded. That's leadership under pressure. Every controlled challenge grows your capacity. Every intentional stressor expands your resilience. And remember the mantra, you can endure more than you think, but only if you train for it. ###2. Pressure reveals emotional weaknesses, so use it as feedback. ***. This is crucial. Stress doesn't create your weaknesses. It exposes them. If you crumble when criticized, the weakness was already inside your relationship with validation. If you panic under deadlines, the weakness was already inside your habits. If you lash out when challenged, the weakness was already inside your ego. If you shut down in conflict, the weakness was in your avoidance patterns. Pressure is a diagnostic tool. It tells you exactly where to train, exactly what to strengthen, exactly which emotional muscles need conditioning. The world is your gym. Stress is your weight. Pressure is your teacher. When pressure hits and you feel yourself cracking, don't shame yourself. Study yourself. Observe the breaking point. That point is your next training session. ###3. Build resilience through progressive overload. ***. Just like physical training, emotional strength grows through gradual increments. You don't start by confronting your biggest fear. You start small. Small challenges, small stressors, small controlled exposures. You endure silence for 5 minutes today, 10 minutes next week, 20 minutes next month. You take a cold shower for 30 seconds today, 60 seconds tomorrow, 90 seconds next week. You hold yourself accountable to 1 task today, 3 tasks next week, 5 tasks next month. You don't jump to the extreme. You build, brick by brick, zet by zet, day by day. Because resilience is not a gift, it's a muscle. Train it and it grows. Ignore it and it weakens. You can endure more than you think, but only if you train for it. ###4. Strength is built in silence. ***. This is one of the most overlooked forms of stress inoculation. Silence. No music. No noise. No distraction. No constant stimulation. Just you and your mind. Most people avoid silence because silence exposes the truth. Your fears surface. Your insecurities appear. Your thoughts get loud. That's why silence is powerful training. If you can stay calm in stillness, you can stay calm anywhere. If you can face your thoughts in quiet, you can face the world in chaos. Silence teaches emotional endurance in a way nothing else can. ###5. Pressure becomes easier when you stop lying to yourself. ***. One reason pressure overwhelms people is because they constantly make promises they don't keep. I'll wake up early. I'll get this done. I'll stop procrastinating. I'll start tomorrow. Then they break those promises. Every broken commitment chips away at your mental strength. Pressure feels heavier when you don't trust yourself to carry it. Training resilience requires honesty. It requires ownership. It requires consistency. The more you honor your own commitments, the stronger you become. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag. So here's the core truth asterisk. Pressure is not the enemy. Pressure is the gym. Pressure is the test. Pressure is a sharpening force. You do not build a mind that doesn't break by avoiding stress. You build it by training with stress. Cold, silence, focus, accountability, discomfort, discipline, pattern breaking. These are your emotional reps. And every rep reinforces the identity you are stepping into. A person who does not collapse under weight. A person who does not crumble when life intensifies. A person who does not break when pressure rises. Because remember, you can endure more than you think, but only if you train for it. You're no longer avoiding the weight. You're lifting it. You're building under it. You're growing because of it. You're forging a mind that stays steady when the world shakes. Now that you build a mind that doesn't break under pressure, it's time to build a heart that doesn't get hijacked by reactivity. Chapter 8. Stop seeking validation. Choose internal authority. There is a quiet addiction destroying your emotional strength. It's not drugs. It's not comfort. It's not distraction. It's validation. Most people live their entire lives chasing approval. Approval from friends. Approval from strangers. Approval from family. Approval from coworkers. Approval from people they don't even respect. They build their identity on external opinions. They build their worth on external reactions. They build their emotional stability on the unstable ground of other people's moods. And then they wonder why they feel fragile, why they overthink, why they crumble under criticism, why they get jealous, insecure, reactive, and resentful. Here's the truth. Validation addiction keeps you emotionally breakable. You cannot be strong if you constantly need someone else to confirm you're strong. You cannot be stable if your stability depends on who approves of you. You cannot lead your life if you're waiting for permission to take the next step, because approval is borrowed power. Authority is self-made. This is the mantra of the chapter. You're going to hear it again and again until it replaces the validation reflex running your life. Approval is borrowed power. Authority is self-made. Let's break down how validation addiction works. When you rely on people to validate you, you are outsourcing your emotional leadership. You're giving other people economic control over your self-worth. You're letting strangers govern your confidence. You're letting opinions become the oxygen you breathe. That is emotional dependency. That is fragility disguised as connection. You check your messages too often. You reword text to sound acceptable. You over-explain your decisions. You apologize for things you didn't do. You ask for reassurance repeatedly. You wait for someone to affirm your value before acting. This isn't harmless. It is an identity leak. Every time you look outward for approval, you drain your internal authority. Remember, approval is borrowed power. Authority is self-made. Let's go deeper. Validation addiction creates 3 emotional consequences. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag 1. Insecurity asterisk, asterisk. When your worth comes from others, your worth becomes unstable. If they like you, you feel good. If they don't, you collapse. People's moods become your emotional weather. One compliment makes your day. One silence ruins your night. This is not confidence. This is dependency. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag 2. Resentment asterisk, asterisk. You start resenting the very people you're trying to please because they never validate you enough, because they don't respond the way you hoped, because they don't ease your insecurity. You're not angry at them. You're angry at your own dependence on them. Hashtag, hashtag, hashtag 3. Reactive overthinking asterisk, asterisk. Overthinking is a child of validation addiction. When you need others to approve your choices, your brain becomes obsessed with predicting reactions. How will they see me? What will they think? Did I say the wrong thing? Are they upset with me? Should I explain myself again? This drains your emotional energy and kills your internal stability. This chapter is about breaking that addiction permanently It's about replacing the craving for approval with the discipline of authority. Because again, approval is borrowed power. Authority is self-made. So, how do you build internal authority? How do you become someone who validates themselves, anchors themselves, and leads themselves? You build self-trust. Self-trust is the emotional anchor. Self-trust is internal authority. Self-trust is the antidote to validation addiction. And self-trust is built through rituals, not wishes. Here are the rituals that build internal authority, step by step. Hashtag ritual number 1, personal standards. Your standards are your internal truth. Your standards are your identity blueprint. Your standards define what you tolerate and what you refuse. If you don't have standards, the world will write them for you. Set standards for how you speak to yourself. Standards for what you'll accept from others. Standards for how you use your time. Standards for how you show up. Your standards must be written for you, by you. Standards eliminate the need for approval because they give you something stronger. Direction. When you have direction, you don't need permission. When you have standards, you don't need validation. Say it. Approval is borrowed power. Authority is self-made. Hashtag ritual number 2, private promises. Confidence comes from one place. Keeping your word to yourself. Not publicly, not loudly, not for applause. Privately. Private promises create internal authority. When you wake up on time because you told yourself you would, self-trust increases. When you finish the task you committed to, self-trust grows. When you maintain boundaries you set, self-trust solidifies. Self-trust doesn't grow in public. It grows in the unseen reps, the quiet disciplines, the moments no one watches. You don't need external validation when your internal scoreboard is strong. Approval is borrowed power. Authority is self-made. Hashtag ritual number 3, self-evidence. People rely on others for validation because they have no evidence of their own strength. If you want internal authority, you must gather self-evidence. Proof of your ability to follow through, handle pressure, keep commitments, and rise above emotion. Evidence comes from behavior, not belief. Do hard things. Do uncomfortable things. Do disciplined things. Do what you said you'd do. Every time you act with discipline, you collect evidence. Every time you stay consistent, you collect evidence. Every time you choose strength over impulse, you collect evidence. Evidence replaces insecurity. Evidence replaces doubt. Evidence replaces validation. The world's approval becomes irrelevant when your own evidence becomes undeniable. Approval is borrowed power. Authority is self-made. Now, let's address the shift you must make. You must move from emotional dependency to emotional sovereignty. Emotional dependency says, tell me who I am. Tell me if I'm good. Tell me if I'm enough. Emotional sovereignty says, I decide who I am. I decide what I'm worth. I decide how I move. Dependency is borrowed identity. Sovereignty is built identity. You don't need people to validate your confidence when your confidence comes from your discipline. You don't need people to validate your choices when your choices follow your standards. You don't need people to validate your actions when your actions fulfill your own promises. Validation makes you reactive. Authority makes you grounded. Validation makes you fragile. Authority makes you solid. Validation makes you needy. Authority makes you self-contained. Remember this. People respect those who do not require their approval. People trust those who trust themselves. People follow those who lead themselves. When you stop seeking validation, you stop leaking power. When you stop begging for approval, you stop shrinking your identity. When you stop outsourcing your worth, you stop sabotaging your stability. You'll become someone who doesn't panic when judged. You'll become someone who doesn't fold when criticized. You'll become someone who doesn't break when misunderstood, because you will know your source of authority, and it will be internal. Approval is borrowed power. Authority is self-made. You've learned to stop seeking what weakens you. Now it's time to learn how to stabilize your internal world even deeper. Chapter 9. Redirect negative states into dominant action. Most people think emotional strength means staying calm all the time. It doesn't. Emotional strength means knowing what to do with your energy, especially the dark, heavy, uncomfortable kinds. Because emotion is energy, and energy, when directed, becomes power, anger, frustration, fear, disappointment. These are not weaknesses. These are raw fuels waiting for direction. The problem isn't the emotion. The problem is when you internalize the emotion instead of utilizing it, when you swallow it instead of move with it, when you spiral internally instead of act externally. The goal of this chapter is simple. Stop letting negative states trap you and start using them to dominate your next move. This is emotional transmutation, not avoidance, not suppression, not denial. Transmutation, turning emotional energy into action that strengthens you instead of weakens you. The mantra of this chapter is, feel it, then aim it. You're going to repeat this until it becomes automatic. Feel it, then aim it. Let's break down the process. Hashtag 1. Emotion is energy. Use it. Don't fear it ***. Negative emotions have intensity. Intensity is energy. Energy can be weaponized. Energy can be directed. Energy can be converted into action. Think about the last time you were angry, really angry. Your heart rate spiked. Your breathing sharpened. Your mind lit up. Your body activated. Most people waste that activation by turning inward, ruminating, doubting, pacing, scrolling, venting, shutting down. But what if you took that activation and moved it outward, into work, into training, into creativity, into discipline? That's the shift. Not calm down. Not don't feel that way. But feel it, then aim it. Hashtag 2. Transmutation, not suppression ***. Suppression is emotional self-sabotage. You try to bottle it. You try to ignore it. You try to pretend it's not there. And it eventually explodes, either at someone you love or at yourself. Transmutation is different. Transmutation says, this emotion is powerful. I will direct it, not deny it. Every high performer knows this instinctively. Athletes use anger to push through an extra rep. Entrepreneurs use frustration to solve problems others quit on. Crisis leaders use fear to focus and execute under pressure. They don't suppress the emotion. They convert it. They feel it, then aim it. Hashtag 3. The mechanics of conversion ***. When a negative state hits you, anger, fear, frustration, you have a small window before it becomes a spiral. Inside that window, you choose what to do with the energy. Here is the 3-step framework. Hashtag step 1. Acknowledge the activation. Say what it is. Call it out. Name the state. I am angry. I am frustrated. I am scared. I am disappointed. Awareness brings control. Naming the state opens the door to directing it. Hashtag step 2. Isolate the energy from the story. Your emotion is real. Your story about it is optional. Anger is energy. But they always disrespect me as a story. Fear is energy. But I'm definitely going to fail as a story. Frustration is energy. But nothing ever works for me as a story. When you remove the story, all that's left is pure fuel. Hashtag step 3. Convert the fuel into forward movement. Once the story is cut, the energy is free to move outward. Channel it into something productive. ***, do the work you've been avoiding. ***, clean your environment with intensity. ***, train your body with purpose. ***, attack a problem you've postponed. ***, build something. ***, fix something. ***, finish something. ***, start something. Action snaps the emotional loop. Action redirects the energy into strength. Action reprograms your emotional identity. Feel it, then aim it. Hashtag 4. Examples of emotional transmutation in real life ***. Hashtag the athlete who channels anger into performance. They don't calm down. They lock in. They let the anger sharpen their focus, tighten their form, increase their output. The anger becomes precision. Hashtag the entrepreneur who uses frustration as fuel. A setback isn't a crisis. It's ignition. They don't pout. They problem solve. They turn disappointment into invention. Hashtag the crisis leader who uses fear to execute. They don't panic. They heighten their awareness. Fear becomes clarity. Fear becomes alertness. Fear becomes sharp, decisive action. You can do the same. But you must train yourself to stop collapsing inward. You must train yourself to use the energy instead of drown in it. Feel it, then aim it. Hashtag 5. Negative emotion becomes a cage when you sit still, ***. Stillness with negative emotion creates loops. Loops create spirals. Spirals create breakdowns. Movement breaks the loop. Movement interrupts the spiral. Movement turns breakdowns into breakthroughs. This doesn't mean running away from feelings. It means giving the feelings purpose. It means funneling the activation into momentum. Emotion is fuel. Fuel must be burned. If you don't burn it through action, it burns you through spiraling. Feel it, then aim it. Hashtag 6. Train your body first. Your mind follows ***. Your body is the fastest way to redirect emotion. Movement regulates emotion faster than thinking about emotion. If your chest is tight, move. If your thoughts are racing, move. If your emotion is overwhelming, move. Emotion trapped in the body creates internal chaos. Emotion moving through the body creates external progress. This is why action works. It gives the emotion somewhere to go. Feel it, then aim it. Hashtag 7. Build an identity around emotional redirection, ***. You must start seeing yourself as someone who converts emotion into power. Someone who doesn't collapse under pressure. Someone who uses intensity as fuel. Someone who moves when others freeze. Identity controls behavior. Behavior reinforces identity. Create the identity of the person who says, I don't spiral, I convert. I don't shrink, I channel. I don't break, I redirect. Because when you learn to redirect negative states, you become emotionally untouchable. You become someone who cannot be derailed by mood, circumstance, or conflict. You gain mastery over your internal world, and therefore mastery over your external world. Remember the mantra. Feel it, then aim it. You've learned how to take emotional chaos and turn it into emotional power. Now you're ready for the next level, learning how to build emotional discipline that sustains your transformation. Chapter 10. Craft the identity of the unshakable human. You've learned the skills. You've practiced the tools. You've built the reps. Now we move into the deepest layer of emotional mastery, the layer that determines everything else. Identity. Identity is the source code of your emotions. Identity is the architect behind every reaction you have. Identity is the automatic script running in the background of your life. Most people never change because they try to fix their behavior without changing the identity that produces that behavior. They try to be calm while still seeing themselves as chaotic. They try to be disciplined while still seeing themselves as inconsistent. They try to be confident while still seeing themselves as insecure. You cannot act beyond who you believe you are. You cannot outperform your self-concept. You cannot execute a standard you don't accept as yours. Identity drives emotion. Emotion drives action. Action drives results. Results reinforce identity. This is the loop that governs your life. And until you rewrite the identity at the top of the loop, nothing changes permanently. Today, we rewrite it. Today, you craft the identity of the unshakable human. Hashtag 1. You become what you rehearse, ***. You've spent your entire life rehearsing certain emotional states, rehearsing reactivity, rehearsing defensiveness, rehearsing self-doubt, rehearsing anger, rehearsing avoidance. You practice these states so many times that they became automatic. They became familiar. They became your identity. But here's the truth. Identity is not discovered. Identity is built. Identity is selected. Identity is rehearsed into existence. Repeat who you choose to be until it becomes who you are. This is the mantra of this chapter. Say it again. Repeat who you choose to be until it becomes who you are. Identity is a choice long before it becomes reality. Hashtag 2. Your emotional defaults come from your self-image ***. Everyone has emotional defaults. Some people default to fear. Some default to anger. Some default to avoidance. Some default to blame. Some default to panic. Some default to withdrawal. These defaults are not random. They are identity-driven. If you see yourself as fragile, you default to fear. If you see yourself as a victim, you default to blame. If you see yourself as incompetent, you default to hesitation. If you see yourself as unworthy, you default to emotional chaos. But if you see yourself as unshakable, everything changes. Your emotional default becomes stability. Your emotional default becomes calm. Your emotional default becomes control. Your emotional default becomes discipline. When your identity shifts, your emotional responses shift automatically. You don't have to try to be calm. You are calm. You don't have to force discipline. You embody discipline. You don't have to fight reactivity. You rise above it without effort. Identity makes emotional mastery instinctive. #3. Build the unshakable character standard ***. You are going to create a standard for yourself, a personal code, a character blueprint. This is your unshakable character standard. It will define how you think, how you speak, how you respond, how you move, how you operate under pressure, how you carry yourself even when no one is watching. Your standard becomes a filter for every emotional decision you make. Here is a foundation of the unshakable standard. #1. I stay calm when others break. ***. Not because I force calmness, but because I am calmness. #2. I choose response over reaction every time. ***. Impulse is not my ruler. Identity is. #3. I act out of principle, not emotion. ***. Feelings may arrive, but discipline decides. #4. I do not negotiate with weakness. ***. I interrupt it. I overpower it. I replace it. #5. I build myself in private, so I cannot be shaken in public. ***. Preparation is power. These are not affirmations. These are identity declarations, identity statements, identity commitments. Repeat them until they feel like truth. Repeat them until your behavior matches them. Repeat them until you no longer have to repeat them. Repeat who you choose to be until it becomes who you are. #4. Identity lives in proof, not promises ***. You don't become unshakable because you said you would. You become unshakable because you proved you would. Identity is built through evidence, through action, through repetition. Every time you pause before reacting, you prove your identity. Every time you choose discipline over comfort, you prove your identity. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you prove your identity. Every time you do the hard thing when the easy thing is available, you prove your identity. Identity rises through action, not intention. Character grows through consistency, not emotion. You don't need to feel unshakable to act unshakable. You act unshakable until that becomes who you are. #5. Your old identity will fight back. Expect resistance ***. Your mind loves the familiar, even if the familiar is destroying you. Your old identity, reactive, fragile, chaotic, will try to pull you back, not because it's stronger, but because it's older. It will whisper, "This isn't you. You're pretending. You're faking it. This won't last. You don't deserve this. Understand something. This is not truth. This is the echo of your former self. You're not faking. You're transitioning. You're rehearsing your new identity until the old one dies from lack of use. What you don't practice, you lose. What you don't reinforce, dissolves. What you don't repeat, disappears. Your old identity has no future unless you feed it. #6. Identity transforms behavior automatically ***. When identity changes, everything downstream shifts. You stop chasing validation because you trust yourself. You stop exploding emotionally because you own your reactions. You stop fearing judgment because you stand on your internal authority. You stop spiraling because you know how to redirect. You stop breaking under pressure because pressure becomes training. Identity is the final piece. Identity is the stable foundation. Identity is the anchor beneath all emotional discipline. When you craft the identity of the unshakable human, you no longer manage emotions. You embody mastery. You no longer fight chaos. You operate above it. You no longer get swept into storms. You walk through them untouched. Repeat it again. Repeat who you choose to be until it becomes who you are. That is identity-driven transformation. This ends a final lesson. Now you understand the architecture of emotional mastery. Now you understand how to build the unshakable version of yourself. And now we move to the closing challenge. You now know the truth. Emotional chaos is optional. Reaction is optional. Losing control is optional. You have learned how to detach, how to respond, how to train your discipline like a muscle, how to remove triggers, how to shape your environment, how to convert emotional energy into power, and how to build an identity that cannot be shaken by circumstance. This entire audiobook has been preparing you for a single decision, the decision to never again hand your emotional authority to the world outside you. From this moment forward, you walk with calm, you act with intention, you decide with precision, and you hold your inner state like a warrior guards a fortress. The storm will come, but you will not break. The challenge now is simple. Prove it. Today, in the next conflict, the next doubt, the next frustration, prove your discipline. Become unshakable.